Welcome back to whatever the heck this is. Going on to song number 2, called Preheat Beat. I'm gonna try to spend less time on like the music aspect of this because there are so many technical things that I want to talk about with this song. Because this was actually the second project. This started as the second project in that class that I took with Andrew Wong, and the whole point of this was sound design, recording your own samples, making your own sounds, and then using them to make a song. And that involved a whole bunch of techniques that at the time I had never done before. A whole lot of interesting stuff went into making this. So that's what I want to mostly talk about. So yeah, let's just jump right in. I did a little more prep for this one. So I can tell you right away, this is in the key of E minor, A minor. I'm trying to say A minor, but somehow I accidentally rhymed with key and said E minor. It's in A minor, A minor. It's in 4/4, 110 BPM. Relatively simple structure, of course. You start with this first chord sequence here in this sort of fluty instrument here. I'll just go ahead and play the first little bit. So this first chord pattern here is just A minor, D minor, E minor, F, G, and then it goes to A, and it just kind of sticks with A minor for a while, and then the chord pattern starts again a little later. So in terms of scale degrees, it's just going 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. If you don't know what scale degrees are, basically, in a major or minor scale, you have 7 notes, and then 1 repeats as you go up or down. So if with A minor, it's A, B is the 2, C is the 3, D is the 4. Simple enough. And then when you play chords in a scale on those degrees, you can think of it as that number. So the D minor, A, B, C, D, it's the 4th. That's the 4th chord. Just shorthand for knowing where you are on a scale. And what's kind of funny about that chord pattern that I'm using is if you played this, again, like the last song I talked about how you use inversions. This song similarly uses those. So you have rising a little bit, and then it feels like it goes back down because of where the notes are going, but in reality you're just kind of going up in terms of the actual scale. So you get this interesting thing going on. I'll demonstrate real quick here. So if I were just playing, the triads, no inversions, going up, you have your 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. See how it just keeps going up? But that's not what you hear in the song. You're hearing up, up, then down, down. So that's the kind of fun you can have with the motion of the notes that you're playing versus where in the scale you're playing chords. So that's all there is to that. The second section that kind of starts here, those chords start over again, but now we have this new instrument as the bass kind of fades out. In this part, it's just playing So it's just playing 2 notes of the chords that are happening. So like here you have the C and the E, and then the C doubled of the A minor, A, C, E. Here you have the D and the F and the D again of the D minor chord. But there's two little differences. Here, you're playing notes of G over the F that's playing in the other instrument, and then here you're playing G, or F over G, sorry. G over F, F over G. So you end up with this kind of weird, like extended chord thing. Hang on. I'm in a weird position here. So there's your F, but then it's adding like this G and B on top of it. So if it was playing it like that, notice how weird that sounds? And then you drop these notes down to F and A, but then the other triad moves to G. See how kind of funky that sounds? So that's what's happening between those two instruments. You're ending up with this like mashed chord extension, but because they're in different spots on the keyboard, if you were playing them together, it extends it out so you don't hear the crunches as being just like mashing your hand on the keyboard. But it adds just this little texture to it that I think's pretty cool. I probably didn't do that on purpose, but I just was like, oh, this sounds right and interesting. And then as it turns out, I'm doing this weird compositional thing. So hey, funny how that works out. Just going to kind of move on to the next big part. Well, you have this little like bass part that comes in. So now this is switching to a little melody. It goes up an octave. Chord pattern's still the same though. And then here we go into the breakdown. Different instruments now. So I'll just show you the chord pattern for that real quick. So you're starting on A minor. Again, that's the 1 of the scale. But it goes to C, then G, then E minor, F, G. So in scale degrees, that's 1 3 7 5 6 7. So that does jump up, then back down, then back up a little bit. And it's just basically following the triads to them for the most part, except for the G that's inverted to bring it back down. Still pretty simple, maybe a little more conventional than the other chord progression. Still nothing all that complicated. So that keeps going for a little bit. And I have this one interesting little moment where I go outside of the key right here. So I'll just play that real quick. So yeah, between these two synths right here, I'll just play them together. So the lower harmony is playing A and B flat. And B flat is not in A minor. So it's going out of key to make this little interesting moment to kind of set it apart from the rest of it, which is, fun to do. I always like finding little moments that like within themselves make sense, but aren't necessarily sticking to the key signature. Makes it sound unique. It's kind of a bluesy, jazzy kind of thing, but in this, EDM context. It's neat, I think. It's a unique moment, and this only happens once. This is the only place I do this. So I like that little moment. I thought that was clever or something. So that goes on for a while, and then you just kind of lead back into the Whoops, too far. Ah, where am I? Here we go. At least back into the opening. That goes for a while. And that was a little like octave dropping in over the bass part. And then I like this here. A lot of stuff fades out. Percussion's totally gone. And now you have going into the outro concept. And that right there is just A minor, G, F, G. So 1, 7, 6, 7. Just going up and down. Real simple. And then that goes out to the very end of the song. Where I'm just ending on A minor, right back at the tonic of everything. So nothing super complicated, a few interesting little moments, but fairly straightforward. Just there's chords, there's melodies going on. You know, the whole percussive breakdown where I have like little triplet sounds and stuff like that. You listen to the song, you hear it. I don't really need to demonstrate those. They speak for themselves. So what I really want to get into with this is the techniques that I used to create all these sounds. So for this song, which I called Preheat Beat, I recorded a bunch of sounds in my kitchen. So I just went around with my phone, recorded, you know, me just like smacking pots and bottles and things and moving lids and turning on the sink, all that kind of stuff. And then I just put all the sounds in to my computer, kind of categorized them by what I thought they might be like. So things that were more like smacky hits, I kind of put in like, maybe those will be snares. Other kinds of hits that I couldn't really categorize, I kind of just put in a percussion thing. Slightly more tonal sounds, but aren't like melodic instruments, but kind of have more like high or low specificity to them. I put in like this sound effects track. Like I just kind of put things in a vague sense so that I would know what general sounds would be in what track, and then figured out what I could use to do what. So, you know, I had a sound for the kick drum. I had sounds that I put together for like a more of a snare thing. I had like pots and pans kind of act like a cowbell. A lot of stuff like that. At a pill bottle be a shaker. But the way to really like take those recorded sounds and not just have them be that sound itself happening in the song, but to make it fit in a better way, you got to do some editing. That's what's called sound design. So let me just show you. This is a pretty easy example, so you'll see the kind of things that I did. So what I did was take a recorded sound and then use various effects to change it. So here, I'll just take away all the effects from this and I'll just play it by itself here. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it's cutting off right in the middle, but that's just a sink running water. By itself, that wouldn't sound very good in a song. It'd be kind of jarring and odd, especially the way it just cuts off. But there's a reason that it cuts off there, because what I was trying to do is have a swell that then lingers on with a reverb trail, so I'll put the reverb back on. Have the other sound in there. That's actually a sugar cup like lid just being removed with the reverb. Sounds really cool. So yeah, already the reverb is changing it into something else. But I also have an equalizer on there. Just open that up. Yeah, it's cutting off some of the treble to keep it from being too harsh, and then most of the bass so that it's mostly sticking to. As you can see right there, it's all sticking in that zone. So I've got that coming through. I've kind of got the isolated sound that I want. And then I have a frequency shifter. This was the main tool that I used for getting all the sounds where I wanted. So this is actually shifting the frequency, or what you would hear as pitch in like a played note on an instrument, way down for this particular one. So let me play it with this. You can hear how much lower that is, right? Here, I'll just like bypass, play it, and then play it with the frequency. So it's a lot lower, and that kind of makes it sound more muted. So to counterbalance that, I have saturation, which kind of pushes the frequencies back up, makes them more present. So now I have it lowered and saturated. So now you can hear it in the mix. You can hear the whole sound at this lower frequency, and it creates this texture that I wanted in the song. So what was so difficult about making this piece is that every sound that I wanted to use, every different sound, I had to do that process. So I had to do that for the kick hit. I had to do that for like the couple different snare sounds. I had to do that for the more cowbelly sounds. I had to, keep adjusting the frequency up and down until I got the sound I wanted. I had to add other effects to make them just right. This took so long, especially because I did not know what I was doing. So this was the real effort of this. But what was really satisfying about it is that knowing that no one else in the world is ever going to have these sounds in a song. These aren't presets or recordings from other people. This is a recording only I could have, and then a sound only I could make from it. So that's pretty cool. So it was really satisfying, even though there was a lot of frustration. And one source of frustration, and this is a little workflow lesson if you're into this kind of thing, I made a big mistake that cost me so much time and energy later. So you can see how, like, say, with like the shaker here, is the same recording like copied a bunch of times just in time, or any of the tracks, you can kind of see that I was copying this section of audio with the chain of effects on it. So you can see like this has the 3 effects on it. Every time I was copying that, I was copying the effects, so they would affect the sound in each copy of the audio. But what I didn't realize I was doing was having that many instances of these effects processing sound that many times in the track meant I kept using more and more processing power, and then eventually my computer couldn't take it anymore. So then my project, like, I couldn't do anything in it. Everything was stuttering and messed up. And that's why you can see all these like blued out tracks. Those are frozen so that they just play the end result audio and don't have all the processing happening. So I had to do that to like almost all my tracks just to work in the project. And what I should have done is, once I had gotten the processed sound that I want, made a copy and then just made that sound audio. So it was just pure audio with no processing on it, and then copied that because I was going to be using that sound over and over. So that was a big lesson learned in this project. This is actually an earlier version of the final song where I hadn't done that yet, and then in the other version that I eventually put on the album, I made all the audio just audio so that I could actually run my computer. The other main technique, well, there's 3 sound generating things that I had to do here. One is using this sampler. So I also took recordings of one was the sound of me blowing across a flute. I meant a bottle that sounded like a flute, not a flute. And the other, well, I had 2 other samples, one of me singing low, one of me singing high. And so this is taking the recording of the bottle, and then between these lines is where the sound is sampling. And then I have an LFO basically controlling the resampling of it at certain intervals. So as I hold notes, it keeps going back and playing. Let me make it higher so it's easier to hear. You can hear us. So yeah, it's just taking that sound and resampling it over and over as I hold notes out. And so that's what's creating the sound for this. And then I have, other effects changing it. So I've got the equalizer, this effects chain, which is just kind of adding like chorus and stuff like that and drive. And it's panning a little bit too, going left and right, not to an extreme, but just giving it some motion. Same thing for like this right here. This instrument is actually my voice. It's just pushed up in pitch. So pretty cool that you're able to just do that. And you can see the resampling there. That's kind of giving it that wobbly sound because it keeps restarting, and then the natural, changes in my voice, going up and down a little bit gives it this cool like wobbly sound. And the bass in the first part is actually my bass or my voice too. I'll just play that. That's just my voice with like saturation driving it to give it that edge. And again, resampling, so it's given that like da-na-na-na-na-na-na. That's that resampling pulse. The third thing that I did was creating my own synth patches. So in the breakdown part, so like right here, the percussion is still recorded samples, but these instruments are from a synthesizer. And I'll show you the patches that I made. So for, excuse me, the bass, I had this patch that I made. And so the way you make a patch, I'm going to do like real quick and dirty synthesis lesson here. So with this synthesizer, you have two oscillators that are making two different kinds of waveforms. Those are blending, and the way they blend you control in the mixer. So you have, for this instance, I have more of this second oscillator in a sine wave than I do in this, which is a saw. And then I have a sub as well, which is like another oscillator that pushes a lower frequency. And a little bit of noise that's just kind of adding texture to the sound. So if I were to, say, drop one of these oscillators, as it's mixing in and out, it's changing, the tone of the sound. If I were to go, that's just the sine wave coming through, right? Or if I had just the saw, or if I had just the sub. So those are all, combining. I mean, I don't have the levels right anymore, but yeah. And so you're just mixing these oscillators until you get the sound that you want. There's a little more to it than that, but it gives you the idea. And then you have your amplitude envelope. Basically, this is determining, how quickly your sound is coming in and then where it's kind of sitting, and then how long after you release your key does it stay sounding. So I have no attack on it, so as soon as I'm pressing the key, the sound is happening. If I were to raise that, it fades in over time. But since I have no attack, it just happens right away. Decay is after it peaks. When it reaches all the way up on the attack, it'll drop down. So if I push the decay out, it takes a lot longer to pop back down in volume. Sustain is just where, how much volume does it go back down to. Higher sustain, it's just going to stay exactly where it was the whole time. Lower sustain, it drops down somewhere else. And then release is how long after you release the key does it take to stop sounding. So that's basically it. And then you also have a filter, which is like an EQ curve like I was talking about in the last video. You have different frequencies being cut off or raised or whatever. And then similarly, you have an envelope for how quickly is that filter fully engaging, and then how is it releasing in general. So that's pretty much it. And then you have, you can add more effects. So like, let me bring up one of the other patches. Bring up one of the leads here. So here you have like a little bit extra clipping to kind of just punch it through the mix, and then you have reverb on it. I mean, that's it. That's the process. Just a lot of little tweaks and trial and error until you get the sound you like, and then you mix it in with the other instruments the way you want. And you've got, your own unique sounds making your own song, which is a pretty satisfying feeling. That's pretty much all there is to that. Any other effects I really wanted to talk about, or not really? Kind of explained everything. So yeah, that's how I made that. Yeah, I really am proud of this song. It took a lot of effort to do and a lot of frustration, but I really like the way it turned out, and it's cool, knowing that I myself made every single one of these sounds. I didn't use anyone else's work for this, which is pretty awesome. So I hope that was an interesting little insight onto things you can do with any sound. You can turn any sound into something musical, whether it's by itself or after you tweak it a bunch, do a bunch of different things to it. You could find a use for a lot of things that you never thought you would have use for. So I think the next track is Empyrean, where I can talk about more ethereal pads. I could talk about side chaining a bass kick. That's an interesting concept. So yeah, hope you're enjoying these. See ya in the next one.